The silence inside the grand estate was not just the absence of sound. It was a weight that pressed against my chest, heavy and suffocating. I stood at the center of the double-height foyer, my hands shoved deep into the pockets of my tailored trousers. Outside, the rain beat relentlessly against the floor-to-ceiling glass, blurring the pine trees into dark, distorted shadows. For 3 years, I had convinced myself that this silence was my triumph. I had built an empire from code, turning a struggling startup into a tech enterprise valued at billions. I was Zayd Al-Sabbagh, a 32-year-old billionaire tech mogul of Arab descent, with a tall, muscular frame, light olive skin, short, dark, wavy hair, warm hazel eyes, and wearing a crisp charcoal suit. I was a man who lived by logic, data, and ruthless efficiency. Yet every evening, when the board meetings ended and the executive suits were hung in the closet, I returned to this sprawling glass tomb on the cliffside. I thought she had ruined me. I thought Soraya had taken the easy way out, selling her integrity and abandoning our life together when the corporate scandal threatened to consume my flagship company. When the audit hit 3 years ago and financial anomalies were discovered, she had vanished without a trial, leaving behind a signed statement admitting to the breaches. The board had presented her exit as a confession of corporate espionage and greed. I had believed them. I had spent 3 long, bitter years hating her memory, feeding my career with the dark, churning furnace of my betrayal. Tomorrow, the estate would belong to a prospective buyer from Europe. I had signed the initial papers that morning, eager to strip away the final physical anchor tying me to a woman who had broken my heart. All that remained was clearing out the West Wing, specifically the sunlit corner room that had once served as her studio. I had avoided that room for 36 months. I had locked the heavy oak door the day the movers packed up her painting easels, pretending the space inside no longer existed. I took a slow breath, the cold ocean air leaking through the grand entryway, and mounted the floating marble staircase. My leather shoes echoed softly against the stone. I reached the landing, pulled the silver key from my pocket, and inserted it into the brass lock of her studio. The door swung open with a faint, reluctant sigh. The air inside smelled faintly of dried lavender, linseed oil, and old paper, the unmistakable, haunting scent of her. Dust motes drifted through the low evening light that seeped past the sheer white curtains. Nothing had been moved. Her drafting table sat near the window, clutter-free except for a brass lamp and a stack of leather-bound notebooks. I walked toward it, my heart hammering against my ribs with an unwarranted, treacherous speed. I touched the edge of the smooth mahogany wood, remembering how she used to sit here late into the night, her brow furrowed in deep concentration as she archived ancient manuscripts and restored frail historic documents. I pulled out the drawer of the drafting table, intending to sweep whatever forgotten stationery remained straight into a black trash bag. My fingers brushed against the polished wood of the bottom panel. Something was wrong with the depth of the drawer. My mind, wired for architecture and structural precision, instantly registered the anomaly. The interior floor of the drawer sat half an inch higher than the exterior base. I pushed my fingers beneath the inner edge, feeling a subtle latch hidden within the groove. With a soft click, the false bottom popped loose. Beneath it lay a shallow secret compartment. Inside rested a single velvet box, dark blue and faded around the edges. Beside it lay an official document stamped with the crest of my own legal team, dated 3 years ago. My eyebrows pulled together. I picked up the paper first. My eyes scanned the legalese, parsing through the dense corporate phrasing. It was an addendum to the settlement agreement, an addendum I had never been shown by my board of directors. The document stated in clear, unambiguous terms that Soraya and Diaya had surrendered all rights to alimony, marital assets, and financial settlements. She had refused every single dollar of the multi-million-dollar buyout my lawyers had offered her to leave quietly. The line where her signature sat was crisp, deep, and unhesitating. She had walked away completely penniless. My chest tightened. Why would an ambitious, money-hungry betrayer refuse millions of dollars? Why would someone who supposedly sold out my company leave with nothing but the clothes on her back? My fingers trembled slightly as I put the paper aside and opened the dark blue velvet box. Inside lay no diamonds, no gold rings, no expensive watches. Instead, lying carefully preserved inside the velvet lining, was a customized physical keepsake card. It was an exquisite piece of stationery. Thick textured ivory paper with gold foil filigree around the border. I recognized the distinct craftsmanship immediately. It was a custom card from Straight Line Cards, a physical keepsake she had crafted and ordered during the final week of our marriage. I lifted the heavy card from its resting place. The paper felt substantial in my hand, carrying a quiet, unmistakable dignity that digital screens could never replicate. I unfolded the card. On the left page, printed in delicate, elegant typography, was a verse about love enduring through silence and fire. On the right page, written in Soraya's precise, fluid handwriting, was a dense letter written in dark black ink. My breath caught in my throat as I began to read her handwritten words. My dearest Zayd, she had written, if you are reading this, it means you finally decided to let go of this house. Or perhaps you finally search for the truth beneath the noise. I know you hate me. I know you look at my empty place at the table and see a traitor who destroyed your trust. I let you believe it. I made sure the board story was watertight so you would never look deeper into the dark water. My heart began to race against my ribs, a cold sweat breaking out across my forehead. She continued, 3 weeks ago, your board members, Marcus and Vance, came to my studio while you were at the summit in Dubai. They brought financial documents. They had constructed a massive, airtight web of falsified evidence that framed you, not me, but you, for systemic fraud and wire illegalities within the firm. They told me that unless I took total responsibility for the missing capital, they would file the charges with the federal prosecutor before sunrise. They were going to strip you of your life's work, steal your patents, and send you to prison for a decade. The paper shook violently in my grip. My vision blurred for a fleeting second before I forced my eyes to keep reading. They offered me money to play the villain. Soraya wrote. They offered me millions to confess and quietly leave the country. I rejected their money. I told them I would never take a dime of blood cash built on your destruction. But I could not let them ruin you, Zayd. You sacrificed your youth, your health, and your peace to build your dream. You carry the dreams of your family on your shoulders. I knew your proud heart would rather go to prison than surrender to blackmail. So I made a trade with the devils. I signed the confession. I took the blame. I let them destroy my reputation as an archivist so they would destroy the fake evidence against you. I made them swear to leave your company untouched. My throat locked. A strange, strangled sound escaped my chest as the truth hit me like a physical blow to the heart. I bear no regrets, my love. Her letter concluded. I would rather spend the rest of my life living in exile, hated by the man I worship, than watch you rot in a cell for a crime you did not commit. Do not look for me. Keep building your world. Just know that every breath of freedom you take was worth my quiet exile. Forever yours, Soraya. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The heavy ivory card slipped from my fingers for a second before I snatched it back out of the air, pressing it against my chest as if trying to push her words into my very soul. I fell to my knees. The hard oak floorboards stung my joints, but I did not care. The tears came suddenly, hot and unbidden, washing away 3 long years of bitter, misdirected hatred. She had not betrayed me. She had saved me. She had stepped into the fire to shield me from the blade, allowing me to hate her so that I would not suffer. She had endured the humiliation, the loss of her career, the isolation of poverty, all so I could sit in my glass tower and call myself a conqueror. I leaned my head against the edge of her drafting table, sobbing silently into the dark room. I was a fool. An arrogant, blind fool who had mistaken the ultimate sacrifice for coldness. In moments of deep regret and love, when digital messages fade into the noise of our busy lives, the unsaid words we keep buried inside can change the trajectory of our entire lives. This story is sponsored by Straight Line Cards. Straight Line Cards creates high-quality, fully customizable physical cards and physical keepsakes that bring people closer when words matter most. Whether you need to express quiet gratitude, seek forgiveness, celebrate a monumental second chance, or send a tangible expression of love across long distances, Straight Line Cards ensures your true emotions are never left unsaid or forgotten in a deleted text inbox. Each card is printed on thick premium cardstock with stunning finish options, designed to be kept, cherished, and remembered for a lifetime. Do not let another day pass with important words lingering in the dark. Visit straightlinecards.com today to customize and send a meaningful physical card and gift directly to the person who holds your heart. I pulled myself up off the floor, my fingers clutching Soraya's physical keepsake card like a lifeline. The grief in my chest transformed instantly into an electric, burning urgency. I wiped the tears from my eyes, my warm hazel eyes hardening with a terrifying, absolute resolve. I pulled out my phone and dialed my lead private security director. "Listen to me carefully," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Cancel the real estate transaction on the house immediately. Void the contract. Then I want Marcus and Vance's personal records on my desk by midnight. Call our legal team at my private residence. We are filing federal conspiracy and extortion charges against the board before dawn." I stopped near the doorway of her studio, looking back one last time at the dim room. "And find Soraya and Diaye," I ordered, my voice trembling slightly. "Use every satellite, every public record database, every archivist registry in the country. Find her now." It took 48 hours of nonstop intelligence tracking. 48 endless hours where I did not sleep, did not eat, and did not close my eyes without seeing her handwritten words burning behind my eyelids. The report arrived on my desk at 3 a.m. on the third day. She was living in a small coastal town in Maine, far away from the high-stakes art galleries and historical institutions of the capital where she had once made her name. She had taken a low-paying position as an assistant archivist at a modest historic community library. She lived in a small rented cottage near the harbor, living a quiet, invisible life. I did not take my private jet. I drove the 500 miles myself, navigating through torrential rain and winding coastal highways, driven by an agonizing mix of terror and hope. What if she refused to see me? What if the damage I had caused by believing the worst of her was unrepairable? What if 3 years of silence had turned her love into cold indifference? The rain had softened into a gentle, misting rain by the time I pulled my dark sedan up to the curb outside the town's historic stone library. The building looked old and weathered, surrounded by towering oak trees, shedding gold and red leaves onto the wet cobblestones. I adjusted the crisp charcoal suit jacket, my heart hammering like a trapped bird inside my ribs. I reached into my inner pocket, feeling the solid, textured fold of the Straight Line Card's physical keepsake card resting right over my heart. I pushed open the heavy mahogany doors of the library. The familiar, comforting scent of old paper, leather bindings, and faint lavender filled my lungs. The ground floor was quiet, empty save for an elderly man reading a newspaper near the back fireplace. I walked down the central aisle, my shoes making no sound against the thick, woven carpet. And then, near the back stacks of the historical archives section, I saw her. Soraya Ndiaye. She stood near a tall wooden ladder, her back slightly turned to me. She was 28 years old, her rich, deep mahogany skin glowing against the soft, ambient light of the desk lamp beside her. Her high cheekbones and dark almond eyes were framed by long, breathtaking black braids that draped gracefully over her shoulders. She wore an elegant emerald green wool cardigan, the sleeves pushed up to her elbows as she carefully preserved an ancient map on a felt table. Seeing her standing there, alive, beautiful, yet living in self-imposed exile because of my blind stupidity, shattered whatever was left of my composure. "Soraya," I spoke softly. Her body stiffened instantly. The frail antique map tool in her hand froze in midair. Slowly, deliberately, she turned around. Her dark almond eyes widened as they locked onto mine. The breath caught in her throat. Her deep mahogany skin seemed to lose its color as shock washed over her features. She looked at my charcoal suit, my face, my eyes, as if looking at a ghost from a past life she had buried long ago. "Zayd," she whispered, her voice a delicate tremble that shattered the quiet room. "What are you doing here? How did you find me?" I could not speak for a second. My throat felt like it was filled with glass. I took 2 deliberate steps toward her, but she instinctively stepped back, pressing her back against the dark wood of the book stacks. "You shouldn't have come," she said quickly, her voice dropping into an urgent whisper. "You need to leave. Zayd. If the board finds out you traced me, if they think we are talking..." "The board is finished," I interrupted, my voice trembling with raw, unrestrained emotion. "Marcus and Vance were arrested 6 hours ago. Federal agents raided their offices. The evidence of their blackmail and conspiracy is in the hands of the district attorney." Soraya gasped, her hand flying to her high cheekbones. She stared at me in complete disbelief. How did you?" I reached into my suit jacket. My hand shook violently as I pulled out the ivory card with its delicate gold foil filigree. "I found the box," I said. "I found the false bottom in your drafting table. I found your letter." Her dark eyes dropped to the card in my hand. A sudden, agonizing wave of vulnerability crossed her face. She closed her eyes, tears leaking through her dark lashes, tracing wet paths down her deep mahogany skin. "You weren't supposed to find that," she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of 3 years of unexpressed pain. "You were supposed to forget me, Zayd. You were supposed to build your life without looking back." I couldn't hold back the tide inside me any longer. I took 3 quick strides forward, closing the distance between us. Before she could retreat, I dropped heavily to my knees right at her feet on the library carpet. "Zayd!" she gasped, stepping back in shock. "What are you doing?" "Get up!" I didn't get up. The billionaire tech mogul, the man who had commanded boardrooms and built corporate empires, knelt in the dust of a small-town library aisle, looking up at the woman who had sacrificed everything for him. "I am not getting up," I said, tears streaming down my olive cheeks. "I will never get up until you hear what I have to say." I looked up into her dark almond eyes, my hazel eyes filled with unyielding truth. "I was a fool," I said, I was blind. I let my wounded pride blind me to the extraordinary soul of the woman I loved. You bore the burden of my sins. You let the world call you a villain so I could play the hero. You lived in darkness so I could live in the sun. I reached out, my hands gently framing her trembling wrists. She did not pull away this time. Her long black braids fell forward as she looked down at me, her chest heaving with silent sobs. I don't care about the company. I whispered, every word carved from the depths of my soul. I don't care about the billions, the press, or the legacy. None of it means anything without you. You gave up your life to save mine. Now let me spend the rest of my life giving you everything you deserve. I pressed my forehead against her dark mahogany hands, feeling the warm, living pulse of her skin against my flesh. Forgive me, Soraya. I wept openly. Please, forgive me for ever doubting you, for ever letting you walk away into the cold. The library was entirely silent except for the sound of our breathing and the gentle patter of rain against the window panes. For a long, agonizing moment, she remained still. Then, slowly, tenderly, her fingers uncurled from her palms and reached into my dark, wavy hair. Her soft touch sent a shockwave through my entire body. Zayd, she whispered, leaning down until her dark almond eyes were inches from mine. I never stopped loving you. Not for a single second. She pulled me up from the floor. I stood, my tall, muscular frame towering over her, but my heart completely surrendered to her grace. I pulled her into my arms, wrapping her tightly against my chest, feeling the soft wool of her emerald cardigan beneath my touch. She buried her face into the crook of my neck, her hands clutching at my charcoal suit as 3 years of loneliness, pain, and unsaid love dissolved in the warm air of the archive. I held her like a man who had been given a second chance at life. I knew the road ahead would take time. We would have to rebuild her name, reclaim her place in the world, and heal the deep scars left by years of betrayal and isolation. But as I held her close, feeling her heart beating steadily against mine, I knew that no lie, no board of directors, and no distance could ever break the bond we had restored. I pulled back, slightly, looking down into her dark eyes, holding the physical card between us, a small piece of paper that had saved my soul. I am never letting you go again, I murmured. Soraya smiled through her tears, her high cheekbones catching the warm gold light of the library. I know, she answered softly. You don't have to. If you want more stories like this, like and subscribe.